2 Kings chapter 3. And Jehoram, son of Ahab, began to reign over Israel at Shomron in the 18th year of Jehoshaphat, sovereign of Judah, and reigned 12 years. And he did evil in the eyes of Yahuwah, but not like his father and mother. For he removed the statue of Baal, which his father had made. But he clung to the sins of Jeroboam, sons of Nebat, who had made Israel sin. He did not turn away from them. And Mesha, sovereign of Moab, was a sheep breeder, and he paid the sovereign of Israel 100,000 lambs, and the wool of 100,000 rams. And it came to be, when Ahab died, that the sovereign of Moab revolted against the sovereign of Israel. And sovereign Jehoram went out of Shomron at that time and mustered all Israel. And he went and sent to Jehoshaphat, sovereign of Yehudah, saying, The sovereign of Moab has revolted against me. Do you go with me to fight against Moab? And he said, I go up. I am as you are, my people as your people, my horses as your horses. And he said, Which way do we go up? And he said, By way of the wilderness of Edom. And the sovereign of Israel went, and the sovereign of Yehudah, and the sovereign of Edom, and went round a journey of 7 days, and there was no water for the army, nor for the cattle that followed them. And the sovereign of Israel said, What? Has Yahuwah called these 3 sovereigns to give them into the hand of Moab? And Jehoshaphat said, Is there no prophet of Yahuwah here? Then let us inquire of Yahuwah through him. One of the servants of the sovereign of Israel then answered and said, Elisha, son of Shaphat, is here, who poured water out on the hands of Eliyahu. And Jehoshaphat said, The word of Yahuwah is with him. And the sovereign of Israel and Jehoshaphat and the sovereign of Edom went down to him. And Elisha said to the sovereign of Israel, What have I to do with you? Go to the prophets of your father and the prophets of your mother. And the sovereign of Israel said to him, No, for Yahuwah has called these 3 sovereigns to give them into the hand of Moab. And Elisha said, As Yahuwah of hosts lives, before whom I stand, if it were not that I regard the presence of Jehoshaphat, sovereign of Yehudah, I would not look at you nor see you. And now, bring me a harpist. And it came to be, when the harpist played, that the hand of Yahweh came upon him, and he said, Thus said Yahuwah, Make this wadi ditches. For thus said Yahuwah, You are not going to see wind nor rain, yet that wadi is to be filled with water, so that you, your cattle, and your beasts shall drink. And this shall be but a light matter in the eyes of Yahuwah. And he shall give Moab into your hand, and you shall strike every walled city and every choice city, and shall cut down every good tree, and stop up every fountain of water, and ruin every good piece of land with stones. And it came to be in the morning, when the grain offering was offered, that see, water came by way of Edom, and the land was filled with water. And when all Moab heard that the sovereigns had come up to fight against them, all who were able to bear arms and older were gathered, and they stood at the border. And they rose up early in the morning, and the sun was shining on the water, and the Moabites saw the water on the other side as red as blood. And they said, This is blood. The sovereigns have indeed struck swords and have killed one another. And now, Moab to the spoil. And they came to the camp of Yisrael, and Yisrael rose up and struck the Moabites, so that they fled before them. And striking, they struck the Moabites, and they broke down the cities. And each man threw a stone on every good piece of land and filled it. And they stopped up all the fountains of water and cut down all the good trees, until only the stones of Kir Hareseth was left. And the slingers went round and struck it. And when the sovereign of Moab saw that the battle was too strong for him, he took with him 700 men who drew swords to break through to the sovereign of Edom. But they could not. Then took his eldest son, who would have reigned in his place, and offered him as an ascending offering upon the wall. And there was great wrath against Israel. And they left him and returned to the land.